Welcome to another lesson. Today we're going to be talking about rolls. Rolls is basically being able to hit multiple notes with one hand after each other. So you're not limited to just going like that. You'll be able to do more notes in succession. Now there's quite a few variation of techniques that I showed. So really the basic one, as we talked about in rudiments, if you were a drummer, it would be taking one of your striking fingers, let's say your index finger, and you start slow and then start speeding it up. Now after a while you will get to the point where this has to become not a constant motion, but really it does become kind of a little spasm of your hand, if you will, if you want to do one note like this. So think of it this way: if you tense up all the muscles in your hand, it will inevitably kind of start shaking, because the muscles that oppose each other, one will always be stronger than the other, and you have to kind of reach this point where you can just make it kind of an unconscious effort. Again, right hand, left hand. And this can sound pretty cool here. As you saw, you can combine it with applying more and more pressure to these nodes, and that becomes kind of a fun little thing to play with. So that's with one finger, and really you just have to start doing it, and then when you reach the point where you can't do it any faster by just actually thinking about hitting, then you get to the point where it becomes kind of a spasm of your hand. Another way that you saw, if you get to the point where you can use your index and middle finger, then this can become something useful to do, and you can always just kind of use it wherever you want. This is my new handpan, by the way. It's an Asachan Yahera, which is very similar to kind of a Hijaz scale. So I wanted to play with this for this lesson, because these kind of rolls and lots of notes sound pretty good on this. So first thing you'll be playing with is the speed, as we showed. So you start slow, go fast. The next thing you can play with, though, for each of these exercises is the volume, or the strength of your hit. So really it's going to be difficult to keep the same tempo, but try to keep the same tempo and just, because this can be useful, as you saw in the intro, again, something like so. Again, playing with, especially on this scale, if you go up or down the scale, it sounds really good if you play with both the volume and the speed. Now what's next? Next one you saw was very interesting. It's usually going to split it between two notes, because you need, well, for me it's my index and my thumb. It's very important to notice the hand motion. It's actually, you have to kind of stretch it like this, so you're really tensing up your fingers, and then you start, it is more of a twisting motion rather than making it kind of a constant effort on part of your fingers. It's just a twisting of your lower arm. And you will, if you just keep practicing this, you will find it, and then you'll find that muscle tension that brings this. But you can actually start, if you kind of try to start slowly, again, you'll have to reach that point where you can't do this anymore, and it has to become a roll. And then that's where you get into it. This is, again, something I covered in one of the lessons where I'm in the car. If you're doing this, well, preferably not when you're in your car, but if you have to pay attention to it wherever you are, you're waiting around, try to practice this on your lap. And this needs to be done. I mean, there's no way around it. If your finger's not trained, like for me, it definitely wasn't as a drummer, so it's definitely something maybe a piano player would be much better at to begin with, because they use their fingers independently. So you have to train yourself. So again, going with this technique, and you can apply this anywhere. Try to practice with the volume too, so you have a constant speed. Maybe stronger, and then softer, and then you can move over. And I think that's most of the techniques covered. So again, doing one finger, going faster, slower, trying maybe a combination of your two fingers if you can. Then the dual note two finger roll. One thing I guess we can cover, but I think it was covered in an earlier lesson of triplets, is that if you can't continuously do this back and forth motion, but you can do one reliably. In drumming, this is called a flam, when you have two adjacent notes. If you can do this reliably, you can actually make a triplet pattern out of it, which will also sound pretty good. So basically you're doing left, right, right. And that'll sound pretty cool, and you can actually move that around. So what it is, just to slow it down, is really... also practice with this, because really your key point is where you go from the conscious hit of one after the other, and you reach that point where you have to go into kind of this automatic mode, and then you're not really thinking about it too much. Slow it back down and speed it back up. Slower, or softer, louder. For some people it may make more sense the other way around, so index finger and then thumb, but whatever feels right for you. So I think that's most of the rolls covered. Again, this is going to be some dry practice that you need to do, but if you're doing it on your instrument or something like this, that in itself is the song, because it just sounds wonderful on this. If we did a bit of isolation, maybe we can tie into that as well. So if you can isolate this motion, you can talk, it's just going to keep going. Then you can combine it with other notes, as you saw there. So it's just go. And that just keeps going, and that could be your next step. So there it is. That's your various single stroke rolls, as we would call them, but I call them just hitting lots of notes with one hand. So hit like if you like the video, and subscribe down there to get updates on the next lessons.